As the world mourns Pope Francis, history's most secretive transfer of power begins. White smoke, the path to a new pope, guides you through this momentous transition. We explain exactly what happens next, leading to the dramatic conclave vote. Learn how each ritual unfolds, what each tradition means, and why these ancient ceremonies still matter today. Follow along as the throne of St. Peter stands empty and a new chapter in church history begins. White Smoke, available wherever you get your podcasts.
Calaroga Shark Media.
From Washington, D.C., where the oath to protect the Constitution should have clued you in, this is Ballot.
I was asked if my job as host of the show means I have to actually host the show, and honestly, I'm no longer sure. Let's hit this. Hi, I'm Patrick Gutfield, and President Donald Trump went on Meet the Press with Kristen Welker, and when asked if he believes he needs to uphold the Constitution during his presidency, he responded with, and I swear this is true, I don't know. You know how when you're at the DMV and they ask if you've read the handbook before taking your driver's test? Most people say, yeah, sure, even if they haven't. But our president just went with I don't know when asked about the document he literally swore an oath to preserve, protect, and defend. Trump was talking about deporting immigrants without court hearings when he made this constitutional shrug. He said, I was elected to get them the hell out of here and the courts are holding me from doing it. When pressed on whether he still needs to abide by the Constitution, that's when the I don't know dropped. Then he pivoted to, I have brilliant lawyers that work for me. That's like telling your spouse you don't know if you should remain faithful, but don't worry. You've hired brilliant divorce attorneys. In the same interview, Trump didn't rule out using military force to take Greenland. But don't worry, Canada. He said it's highly unlikely he'd use force against you. That's the international relations equivalent of telling your neighbor, I probably won't bulldoze your house. Probably. And apparently we don't need Canada at all. Trump said, we don't need their cars, we don't need their lumber, we don't need their energy, we don't need anything. On the economy, Trump suggested Americans will just have to make do with fewer things, saying children don't need $30, they can have $3 or $4 instead. I haven't seen a president this invested in doll rationing since Herbert Hoover's famous "a chicken in every pot and exactly $6 per household" platform. When asked about rising prices for baby items, Trump dismissed concerns saying, when you say strollers are going up, what kind of a thing? I'm saying that gasoline is going down. Gasoline is thousands of times more important than a stroller. Tell that to any parent who's ever had to carry a 25-pound child plus diaper bag for miles because they didn't bring a stroller. So remember, America, the Constitution is a maybe, Greenland is in danger, Canada is useless, but safe-ish, and your child only needs $4 and 0 strollers. But don't worry, gasoline is cheap. Democracy has never been more interesting. Remember when President Trump shared an AI image of himself dressed as the Pope on social media? Now he's claiming he had nothing to do with it. That's right. The image appeared on both the White House X account and his Truth Social page, but according to him, it just materialized out of thin air. When reporters asked about Catholics being upset, Trump said they can't take a joke. Then immediately pivoted with, you don't mean the Catholics, you mean the fake news media. The Catholics loved it. Cardinal Timothy Dolan of New York had a different take. When asked if he was offended, he used the phrase "brutta figura," which is Italian for "this is definitely going to come up in my next confession." And here's the kicker. Trump insists his wife Melania thought the image was cute and said, isn't that nice? Because nothing says respecting religious figures like dressing up as their recently deceased leader. Meanwhile, Vice President J.D. Vance, who converted to Catholicism as an adult, responded with, I'm fine with people telling jokes. Which is exactly what someone says when they're not fine, but their boss is the one who made the joke. Also, what one says when they were the last person to meet Pope Francis in a weird coincidence. Trump also joked last week that he was his number one choice for Pope. Because if there's one job where you can say whatever you want without consequences, wait, never mind. He already has that job. For the latest in what's happening with the actual papacy, and hey, Maybe they will select Trump. We're all living in the simulation anyway. Follow the podcast White Smoke for daily updates about what's happening in Rome. White Smoke, wherever you get your podcasts.
What happens when one of the most powerful men in music is accused of some of the most serious crimes imaginable? This is Did He Do It?, a daily podcast following the federal sex crimes trial of Sean Diddy Combs. I'm your host, Nate Oliver, and every weekday I'll take you inside the courtroom where prosecutors say Combs ran a criminal enterprise of sex trafficking, coercion, and abuse, using his fame, fortune, and influence to silence victims and control lives. We'll cover the big stories and the small moments that could shift the verdict. The trial has begun. The questions are piling up. And every day we'll be asking the same thing. Did he do it? Follow now wherever you get your podcasts.
Tired of doom scrolling? Want news that won't make you want to live in a bunker? Check out 5 Good News Stories, where they find the silver lining in a world that's usually lined with something much less pleasant. The gang at 5 Good News Stories dig through the headlines to find 5 stories that prove humanity hasn't completely lost its mind. It's pretty much the opposite of this show. From scientific breakthroughs nobody's talking about to random acts of kindness that restore your faith in humanity, all delivered with the cutting wit you deserve. 5 Good News Stories, because sometimes the news doesn't have to suck. Subscribe to 5 Good News Stories wherever you get your podcasts. Remember Joe Pantoliano? You know him as Ralph Cifaretto from The Sopranos, the guy who met his end with a telephone receiver. Now, at 73 years old, he's ready to pack his bags and leave America faster than a wise guy who just realized he's wearing a wire. Pantoliano was born in New Jersey, which explains his immunity to bad smells and why he probably doesn't have real ID. He recently told Page Six that he and his wife are thinking about moving to Portugal permanently. "We really love it there," he said, adding that it's hard for me to think about people's bulls to heap while trying to work. I mean, when a guy who played a mobster thinks there's too much drama in America, that's saying something. "The world is on fire. It's hard for me to concentrate," Pantoliano explained. You know who else said that? Every student trying to finish homework during the apocalypse. Pantoliano joins the exodus of celebrities fleeing Trump's America. Ellen DeGeneres and Portia de Rossi traded Los Angeles for the English countryside after Trump's re-election. Meanwhile, Rosie O'Donnell has no regrets about moving to Ireland, saying, "I knew after reading Project 2025 that if Trump got in, it was time for me and my non-binary child to leave the country." You have to wonder, is Portugal ready for a wave of American celebrities? I mean, their biggest export used to be cork. Now it might be Instagram stories about how much better the healthcare system is over there. Portions of today's show were made with the help of The Sopranos, the Constitution, and American-made AI.